into the weekend. Clearer skies for Scotland and Northern Ireland, meaning in rural areas here there will be a frost to start the weekend. But for Scotland, Northern Ireland, plenty of sunshine likely on Saturday. South East Scotland may well stay fairly dull. Certainly, look at this, across these eastern parts of England, down into the Midlands, Saturday looking grey and damp, rain and drizzle on and off for much of the day. Not much rain, if any at all, for Wales and southwest England, so brighter skies likely here, but definitely the lion's share of the sunshine will be for Scotland and Northern Ireland. But even with the sunshine, temperatures only in single figures, and again, under that rain band over parts of the Midlands, northeast England, feeling pretty bleak, 5 or 6 degrees for some here. Sunday isn't any warmer, but it should be drier and brighter, certainly across the east. We'll see a few sunny spells, predominantly cloudy though, still single figures and feeling colder with an easterly breeze.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good morning, it's 9:30 and this is The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, on your TV and your radio. Today we get the perspective from the Ukrainian parliament and ask what more can be done as last night Putin turned his fire on a nuclear power plant. We also discuss last night's by-election and, as some call for German Chancellor Angela Merkel to get stuck back into international diplomacy, we explore whether that's a good idea or not. All that after your morning headlines.
Good morning, it's 9:30. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister says Russia's shelling of a nuclear power station in Ukraine is directly threatening the safety of all of Europe. The Zaporizhzhia power plant, the largest in Europe, caught fire after it was attacked by Russian forces overnight. The blaze has since been put out and it's understood radiation levels haven't changed. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused the Kremlin of nuclear terror.
If there is a nuclear explosion, this will be the end of everybody, the end of Europe. This will mean the evacuation of the whole of Europe. Only immediate action from Europe can stop the Russian troops. Don't let Europe die in a nuclear catastrophe.
The Foreign Secretary says allies are prepared to tighten the vice around Putin's war machine. That as an intensive day of diplomacy begins in Europe. Liz Truss will attend a series of meetings, starting at NATO's headquarters in Brussels. Later, she'll attend the EU's Foreign Affairs Council as a special guest, as well as meeting G7 leaders. The Home Secretary is visiting Poland later to meet Ukrainians seeking to flee to the UK. Priti Patel is expected to launch the Ukrainian Family Scheme, allowing Brits and those settled in the UK to bring their relatives over to join them. And in other news, Paulette Hamilton has won the Birmingham Erdington by-election, holding the Labour seat. A nurse of 25 years, Ms Hamilton becomes the first black MP to represent a Birmingham constituency. TV online and DAB Plus Radio, this is GB News now. Now it's back to the briefing with Tom Harwood.
Good morning, it's 9:33 and this is the briefing with me, Tom Harwood, on your TV and on your radio. Now, Ukrainian authorities say that Russian forces have seized the largest nuclear power plant in Europe. A fire broke out at the power complex in southeastern Ukraine early this morning amid heavy shelling in the area by Russian forces. While nuclear regulators and government bodies say radiation levels appear normal, this is clearly a risky situation. President Zelensky has accused Russia of intentionally firing at the nuclear plant and has urged NATO leaders to wake up now and stop Russian forces before this becomes, quote, a nuclear disaster. Well, joining me now, right in the middle of the thick of it, is Mykola Volkivsky, an advisor in the Ukrainian parliament. Welcome to the programme, Mykola. I understand that last night your hometown came under pretty heavy attack. Our sympathies are obviously very much with you, but could you tell us about what happened?
Good morning, Tom. Yes, because I live in the Zhytomyr region, it's the center of Ukraine, but our in Zhytomyr in the center was attacked. Even the school number 25 was destroyed. I don't know how many people was inside, but we received the briefing of the mayor. We don't know how many people was died during this attack of the school number 25. Even for my native city, it's 70 kilometers from Belarus, also was under attack from Belarus side. And they destroyed the Ukrainian railway center because my city is like the strategically point for Russian because it's the main point of railway in Ukraine, in the center of Ukraine. But it's true, 2 weeks ago I write the article about the nuclear plants and the problem that then 15th Chernobyl can be the same time. In this situation can destroy not just in Ukraine, but whole world. We write this article together with the head of exclusion zone, Katerina Pavlova. And we would like 2 weeks ago, I was in Munich Security Conference. I talked with a lot of governance. I would like, I try to figure out, to say them that it's a big problem because, in Energodar city now, and the Russian already entered the city where it's the biggest power plant in Europe, it's situated. A lot of my friends who live in this city, they write me, you need to pray for us because it's a big problem. It's true. The Russian military, the Russian troops just rolling in city center. The mayor of the city just sent a briefing that said that everything it's okay, but it isn't true because something is not okay. Not okay is this, that we received also the information from European decision support system for emergency management and after nuclear radical assessment. They said it's a big problem, now with radiation across this region. But hopefully they already entered two of biggest centers of nuclear. It's Chernobyl exclusion zone. It's like 3 days or 4 days ago. Now they in Energodar in Zaporizhia, but we have two more nuclear plants in Rivne and even in Khmelnytsky. From this reason, we need to support.
Oh, I'm very sorry there. We seem to have a problem, of course, speaking in the middle of Kyiv. We know that telecommunications issues are rife with the Russians attacking telecommunication towers as well. I believe that we can re-establish communication right now with Mykola. Welcome back to the programme. I wonder if we can move this conversation on to Kyiv because obviously that 40-kilometre convoy still waits outside the city that I believe you're in right now. Has Kyiv itself had much action from the Russians, or does it all feel like a bit of suspended animation?
In Kyiv, it's like the humanitarian catastrophe. You can observe from the media, from TV, my friends have said it's no products in supermarkets. It's not, you cannot buy any stuff. Like from 3 to 6, you can, for example, buy some bread or something. From this reason, it's a big problem. of course, 3 days ago, they tried to destroy the Ukrainian main satellite, which based in Babin Yar Holocaust Memorial. You know, from this reason, I would like to ask the Russians, how is it possible to make the denazification of my country in the same time you try to attack the main memorial center, what a lot of Jews was killed during World Second War? Because my apartment is based like about 100 meters from Babi Yar, from this place, which was under the attack. My friends tried to leave. A lot of children and mothers tried to escape here, but now it's just possible by railway. But I mentioned before that they tried also to destroy main railway centers, which continue the road to Lviv. From this reason, it can be biggest problem ever, because if they destroy the railway, it isn't any possibilities to leave the centers like Kherson, like Kharkiv, Sumy, or now it's Energodar. From this reason, we need to totally support from international organizations, make the big sanctions and close the air from the Russians, because if they will enter two more nuclear power plants in Khmelnytsky and Rivne, it can be the catastrophe and can be disaster, not just for Ukraine, but just for whole world in Europe and whole world itself.
Well, Mykola Volskivsky, we really appreciate your time this morning, and our deepest sympathies to your people as well, as that heavy shelling has continued apace over the last few days. Thank you for joining us here on The Briefing.
Thank you, sir.
This morning. Well, now, returning to more parochial matters, as Labour held its seat in the Erdington by-election after a controversial candidate, Paulette Hamilton, was voted in to the safe Labour seat on a historically low turnout. Well, our West Midlands reporter, Balvinder Sidhu, was in Erdington this morning.
So I was at the count last night and the results came in around 1 a.m. and as you just said, Labour have held on to this seat. I mean, it's been held by Labour for longer than before you and I were even born. That's how long Labour have kept this seat. It's been known as a so-called safe seat. Now, there was a little bit of tension throughout the night, a little bit of worry because of the low turnout that this may not work in Labour's favour, but they did hold on with a majority and they elected Paulette Hamilton, who has now become Birmingham's first ever black MP. There was lots of conversation about that, actually, that people were quite surprised that, you know, Birmingham doesn't have a black MP already, considering it is one of the most diverse cities in England. But Paulette Hamilton did win, and in her victory speech, she thanked the leader of the party, Sir Keir Starmer.
I will be your voice in Westminster and challenge this government to get a better deal for Erdington. But I'd also like to say a special thank you to Keir Starmer for his endless support. Even when my dad died, they were there, they wrapped me in cotton wool and they supported me.
Well, it's been a sort of turbulent campaign for Paulette. I mean, at the beginning, she lost her father, and then, you know, she's had, you know, quite a lot of support from the Labour Party, as she just mentioned there. But, you know, in the early days, they were quite confident that they would win this seat because of the Partygate scandal that's been going on at Westminster. But then a couple of days ago, controversial comments that she made in 2015 were unearthed by GBNews, and that did affect her campaign. And as she hit the headlines for those comments, you know, Labour came well behind her. They supported her and said that they do still think that she's the best person for the job, and that, you know, she was just talking about better representation for black people in public office. But it's likely that those comments will be discussed in the days to come, as some Tory MPs have written to Sir Keir Starmer asking him to question whether she is the right person for this this job as MP here in Erdington. But of course, the people here have chosen Paulette Hamilton to be their next MP and to represent them. And they, you know, when I've been here on the road, you know, talking to people, they're desperate for somebody to regenerate their high street and help with the cost of living, because these are the real issues affecting people in these sorts of smaller areas in England, and that's what they want their next MP to be focusing on.
Balvinder Sidhu there, our West Midlands reporter. Well, the turnout was a measly 27%. Just over 17,000 votes were cast in total in the seat. Let's discuss this result and what it means for the Labour Party now with the Labour MP Graham Stringer. Welcome to the programme, Graham. Firstly, congratulations to your party retaining that seat. I suppose it wasn't that much of a surprise, the seat having been held by the Labour Party since 1945.
No, political parties always breathe a sigh of relief when they win by-elections because they're a bit of a lottery. So it's a good result. Winning any by-election is a good result. So I'm very pleased about that, and I'm sure our candidate Paulette will make a major contribution to the Parliamentary Labour Party and to the House of Commons.
There's been some questioning this morning about that low turnout, about whether there's enough enthusiasm for this iteration of the Labour Party. Clearly, under the previous leader of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, a very controversial person, but clearly amongst a set of people in this country, inspired a huge amount of enthusiasm. Keir Starmer seems to be running a much more muted sort of leadership, inoffensive to just about everyone, but there is a worry amongst some that that inoffensiveness leads to apathy.
By-elections often, as you said previously, often have very low turnouts. I think there is a complete consensus within the Labour Party that the best Labour leader we had was Clem Attlee, who was notoriously quiet and non-charismatic. I think the people of this country don't want a showman, they don't want the razzle-dazzle. They want somebody who they believe will get the priorities that this country need correctly and will do a decent job. And I think Keir Starmer, there's some way to go, but I think he's slowly and steadily convincing people that he is the right person to lead this country after the next general election.
It's interesting, given the picture of the Labour Party that Sir Keir Starmer has been painting fairly successfully over the last year, expressing that the Labour Party has changed, is moving more towards the mainstream. I wonder how much that's reflected in the candidacy of Paulette Hamilton. Of course, GBNews earlier this week uncovered video from 2015 of the candidate speaking at an event titled The Ballot or the Bullet, which I believe we can roll a little clip of on our screens right now, just her speaking at this event, where she seemed to mull over the possibility of the ballot or the bullet, saying she was torn between the two. Do you think she should apologise for those comments?
I think you would not be able to find a politician in this country who could defend everything they'd said over the previous 10, 20, 30 years. I certainly couldn't. In the middle of the debate, when you're focused on one particular issue, in that case, how you get more representations from underrepresented groups. Sometimes people don't choose their words as careful as they would do if they were in the middle of a by-election. Remember that our last speaker had worn a T-shirt which said, "Hang Nelson Mandela." So I am sure Paulette Hamilton comes from the mainstream of the Labour Party, and she will be a good Labour MP for Birmingham and for the whole of the country. I think you can... you can find things that any politician, whether it's Boris Johnson's got a whole catalogue of things he is embarrassed about, which are brought up. People still chose him. and the Conservative Party at the last general election to be the Prime Minister. People understand that sometimes politicians, when they're exploring ideas, say things that they're not going to stick with for the rest of their political lives.
So would you relate that sort of clumsiness, therefore, I suppose, Paulette Hamilton being someone who's not nefarious, but potentially clumsy with words in a way that this Prime Minister is as well?
I think that's a bit of a leap. What I'm saying is all politicians are in that category, that we couldn't, all of us will have said something at some time which would be slightly embarrassing in the future, because the world changes, our views change, we're engaged in debate all the time. Certainly my views have changed on a number of things. In your introduction, you were talking about the dreadful attack on the nuclear power station in Ukraine. For most of my youth, I was against nuclear power. I now think it's a vital part of our energy future. I've changed my view. People do change their view, and particularly young people or people entering politics for the first time sometimes say extreme things as they explore ideas and develop their ideas. So, no, I don't think that Paulette is in the same category as the Prime Minister, who also regularly lies. She's in the same category as most politicians. We develop our ideas as the world changes, and we change to respond to those ideas, to those changing situations.
Just finally in this conversation, in the final minute or so, the other comment that raised eyebrows from that video was one on postal voting, where there's been a lot of accusation about the way in which postal voting is conducted in this country. And the words of Paulette Hamilton were as follows. The postal vote is the way some of our ethnic minority communities actually lock it down, because that's what they do. Whole families just have the postal vote. Whoever comes in says, hold this one, tick, postal vote goes back down, and in one household we can have 8 votes and it's locked down. What does that comment mean to you?
Well, the government at the moment are changing the rules on how you vote. We're going to have ID before we vote, which has not been the case in England, Scotland, Wales. It's been the case sometime in Northern Ireland. I think that will slightly repress the voting levels, and they're not focusing on postal votes. I worry, I wouldn't have used the words that Paulette used, but I worry that postal voting is a very insecure part of our democratic system, and I think it needs tightening up. When I first started in politics, you had to get a JP or a GP to sign a form to say that you could have a postal vote. That was probably a bit extreme, but everybody being able to have a postal vote, Tony Blair brought that in, and he did it on the basis that it would increase turnout in elections. It hasn't. It's made electoral fraud more likely, and I think we need to tighten that up.
Well, Graham Stringer, thank you very much for your thoughts this morning. And once again, congratulations to your party on its by-election victory last night. Now, as the Ukraine crisis rolls on, some has called for the return of a voice who departed the stage last year. Yes, some people have called for German Chancellor Angela Merkel, former German Chancellor Angela Merkel, to return to global politics, to mediate between Putin and the West. Yes, this same Angela Merkel who decided to switch off German power plants and import much more Russian gas, who never met that 2% spending commitment that NATO asks for on her armed forces. I wonder what her legacy really is and if she's the right person for this moment. Well, joining me now from Washington, D.C. is senior correspondent at The Independent, Eric Garcia. Welcome to the programme, Eric. I know you've written on Angela Merkel before. In your view, has her legacy here, not in majority, of course, but has it helped contribute to the crisis point that Europe now finds itself in?
Yes and no. I think that, to the point that Angela Merkel was someone who advocated for the Nord Stream 2 pipeline when in the United States many Democrats even advocated against that. I think that might have contributed more to the current crisis in Ukraine. As you mentioned, there were concerns that Germany was not contributing its share to NATO defense forces. There are plenty of ways I think that people were concerned that these positions were not conducive to promoting peace in Ukraine. And on top of that, I think that it's interesting because for a long time, I think she was a mainstay. A lot of American presidents and politicians were people who wanted to cozy up to Angela Merkel.
Yes, it does seem that there was a broad sense, really, right through from over the last 15 years, really, of potentially of appeasement. When it came to Russia taking bites out of other countries, behaving extraordinarily in Syria as well, the global community almost turned its back and turned a blind eye to this sort of action. I wonder to what extent we'll be revisiting a lot of the politicians over the last 10 or so years who may well have been placing the wrong priority when it comes to morality and international affairs.
I mean, you could say the same thing about the United States of America here. During President Bush's administration, Vladimir Putin invaded Georgia. You could say the same thing about President Obama when he focused, didn't necessarily take, some could argue he didn't take the necessary action with Ukraine, and there weren't tough enough measures with how Russia was arguing with was basically running cover for Syria, running defense for Syria. And you could also say the same thing about President Donald Trump. You could say that he aggravated and eroded international credibility so that it made it more difficult for the international community to rally around Ukraine, and to say nothing of his friendly relationship with Vladimir Putin and his denial of the fact that Russia intervened in the 2016 election. That essentially gave Mr. Putin cover for actions in Ukraine. And the fact that he basically tried to extort Ukraine and Volodymyr Zelensky. So.
It's interesting, this question about President Trump, because I saw a website I follow in the United States, The Hill, publish a poll, I think last week, showing, I think it was a majority of Americans thought that Trump would have handled this crisis better than Biden. Now, setting aside whether or not that's a fair assumption or not, the fact that so many Americans believe it could have some pretty sizable consequences for the midterm elections.
Yes, but I think that's more a consequence of people just generally being dissatisfied with President Biden at the moment for a whole host of reasons. You saw his numbers go down after the exit in Afghanistan, where 13 U.S. service members died. You've seen concern about inflation. You've seen concerns about rising gas, or I should say petrol prices in the UK. You see that concern about gas prices, about food prices. You see the concern about a host of issues. So it's more just general dissatisfaction with President Biden than it is, President Trump would probably do better. President Trump has, he spoke at a convention over the weekend, and he said, I'm the only president that didn't have Russia invade a country. Well, the fact of the matter is that because his presidency was so unstable and it was undermining international alliances, President Putin probably didn't feel the need to do that. And because he was trying to extort Mr. Zelensky into digging the dirt on Joe Biden. So it's not necessarily, so I think that it's not necessarily a matter of President Trump would do better. It's a matter of people are just really dissatisfied with Joe Biden.
Well, it'll be fascinating to follow how the politics twists and turns in the other side of the pond follow through until November. We'll keep a close eye on it, of course. But for now, senior correspondent at The Independent, Eric Garcia, thank you for joining us here on The Briefing. That's it for the programme today. Coming up, it's To The Point with Patrick and Mercy. But first, it's the weather.
Good morning. Things turning colder over the next few days, and today we have an east-west split. A pretty dull and dismal day across much of the east, where some brighter skies are likely further west, where we have this little ridge of high pressure toppling in. This weather front, though, that's been snaking its way around the country for the past couple of days, has now kind of ground to a halt over eastern Scotland, northeast England. It's made for a wet night, and the rain will persist across northeast England, eastern Scotland for much of the day. It'll at times extend into the East Midlands, parts of East Anglia and the southeast too. Whereas further west, yes, a few showers are possible for Northern Ireland, South Wales, southwest England, but many places in the west will be dry and bright, and at times we'll see a bit of sunshine. The winds are quite light, but temperatures are only going to be in single figures for the vast majority. And stuck under that rain band, look at that, just 5 or 6 in Newcastle, whereas we should get to double figures in Cardiff and Southampton. That rain bands will stick around through the night and into the weekend across these eastern parts. So staying pretty wet overnight across Aberdeenshire, down through Lincolnshire and East Anglia, and the rain just creeping back towards the Midlands as we head into the weekend. Clearer skies for Scotland and Northern Ireland, meaning in rural areas here there will be a frost to start the weekend. But for Scotland, Northern Ireland, plenty of sunshine likely on Saturday. Southeast Scotland may well stay fairly dull. Certainly, look at this, across these eastern parts of England, down into the Midlands, Saturday looking grey and damp.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Radio and online. We've got a massive show for you today with loads of top stories.
Absolutely. Well, make sure they get in touch with your views as usual. GBviews at gbnews.uk. We're getting through all of those throughout the programme, but first, here's the latest news.
I've got my earpiece off at some point as well.